Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Imagine if Crazy Karen was your boss. What would you do? Of course, try to get her fired. If you're new here, join our channel. Here we go. Fire me for protecting my coworkers? Feel the burn in return. So this story is a few years old now, from my first year of varsity. I had started varsity and was doing a pretty hectic course in the medical field. As a child to a single parent who'd not worked since I was 15, I obviously needed a job to cover my living expenses and what little my scholarship didn't. So I started working part-time at a bookstore in my local mall as it suited my personality, and I love books in general. The bookstore was one of those large-scale corporate chain types. The pay was as close to minimum wage as humanly possible, though. So 6 months in, I'm doing well and I get promoted to night manager. Duties involve managing the night staff, most of which are students like myself, and then 2 late 20s girls, both of whom have kids. A week into my being night manager, a directive comes from the head office saying that we're not making enough book sales and that we're obviously not trying. Now, to put it into perspective, this is around the time where Kindles and all the other types of e-readers were becoming popular, so naturally, physical book sales had dropped radically. To remedy this fact, they were sending down a new store manager to take over, and our current store manager would take a minor managerial role. 3 days later, in walks the new manager, a short woman who hates men and is bipolar, henceforth known to as Bipolar B, or BB. Needless to say, I walked through to the back for our daily shift change meeting, where they introduce her. She greets us all and then asks all the managers to stay behind, so everyone filters out, leaving the 4 managers. Myself as the night manager, the day manager, the stock manager, and our previous store manager. So next thing, BB turns to me and asks, "WTF am I doing still here?" I calmly explain that I'm the night manager. She hears this and looks at everyone else to confirm this. Once they confirm the truth of my words, she looks at me directly and gives us the whole throwdown of how things around here are going to change, nada. 6 months down the line, nothing much has changed. BB's been nothing but passive-aggressive to me and some others, and everyone has noticed, to the point where everyone in our store has a burning dislike for her. The managers get called in for a meeting where we're told that the store is going to be closing in a week for 2 months for a revamp. I immediately ask why the short notice. The night staff all earn on a shift-to-shift basis. A week's notice isn't enough time to make alternative arrangements. BB flips out at me saying they don't matter and are easily replaceable. I point out that 2 of them rely on this job to feed their families and can't live without this job. All the other managers stand with me on this point. BB then falls back and says we will pay them a base wage for 1 month, then hire them as painters. Now, my neighbor is a painter by trade, and I know they earn at least twice what we're paid per hour, so I point this out as well and ask if she's going to pay for them to be trained. She then flips out at me further for being a smart aleck. Okay, maybe I deserve that. Eventually, she says that we'll meet tomorrow to discuss her final decision. The time that she chooses, though, is an hour and a half before my shift starts and right in the time frame where I have one of my final exams. I point this out, and an evil grin crosses BB's face as she says to me, "If you don't make it tomorrow, don't bother coming in ever again." A week later, I find out 3 of my coworkers on the night shift were let go with no pay and told to reapply once the store opens. All those who had openly been friendly with me were told not to come back. This included both young mothers. This sends me into a fit of absolute rage. It's one thing to screw with me, but mess with my coworkers as well? That's too far. I immediately phoned the head office to complain and was completely ignored, kept on the line, switched from department to department. Eventually, I had enough and sent in a detailed report to my country's Business Control Council, reporting the corporation rather than the store for bad business practice and unfair dismissal of multiple staff members. I then emailed the corporation's HR explaining what I had done and why. I informed them that I would change my complaint to the name of the store manager, instead of the corporation in general, if they found a way to rectify what they'd done. It took 3 days before I received a response. They rented a smaller store for everyone to work at while the renovations were done at great expense due to the small timing window, and they had rehired everyone while suspending BB without pay until further notice. I immediately kept my promise and edited my complaint. Investigation was done, and BB lost her job permanently with no chance of reference. Had worked at said company for 20 years. With a 20-year gap in her CV, it's been very hard for her to find a decent job. I saw her the other day working as a packer at my local supermarket. I realized I'd forgotten to get sweet chili sauce and asked her to please go get me a bottle off the shelf. Could not think of anything better to do as I had the flu and really was not my sharpest. Just wanted to get back to bed. She went off scowling, but I can't even guarantee she recognized me. That's what brought the story to mind. And our next story. Do everything by the manuals? Okay, I will do everything by the manuals. I work as an aircraft mechanic for an airline. The story's about my last week at my previous airline. When fixing aircraft, you're required to have technical data on everything you do. On commercial aircraft, it's normally pretty easy since 95% of what we do has detailed manuals giving step-by-step instructions and references to other manual sections for stuff like ops checks. As certified mechanics, we're required to have our manuals readily accessible as we do our work. Generally, it's considered acceptable to have our manuals up on our computer when we were working. We had mobile workstations in the hangar and laptops for at the gate. Management at our base didn't think this was going to be okay with the FAA, it depends on the local FAA inspectors, and started demanding we print out our manuals. A few months of this, and they started getting on us harder that we weren't printing out all of our manuals. We aren't printing out 8 pages of manual to service engine oil or checking tire pressures. We would literally spend more time printing it out than on the job. I was moving across the country and getting a job with a different airline. Knowing I was in my last week, my leads and supervisors came to me with a glorious proposal. Management wanted all the manuals printed out. Well, they wanted me to do a routine inspection and print out all the manuals and follow them to the letter. Normally, this inspection can be done by one experienced mechanic in 2 hours. Not tonight. We pulled the plane in and I hit the computer. Printed the inspection card. Printed the manual for checking lights, which needed manual for making aircraft safe for maintenance, which needed the manual for parking the aircraft, and the manual for electrically grounding the aircraft, and the manual for installing all the probe covers, wheel covers, engine plugs, etc. This goes on for 250 plus pages just to make the aircraft safe for maintenance. I spent 5 hours printing all the manuals just for that, finding and installing the covers, and the best part of all of this, one of the wheel covers was missing. Technically, I can no longer make the aircraft safe for maintenance because the manual never said this step was optional. So I wrote up in the logbook, unable to perform MX due to failure to make safe for maintenance due to missing wheel cover. This grounds the airplane. Now an emergency AOG, aircraft on ground order for a wheel cover is created by my laughing supervisors. This is an expensive emergency, faster than next day FedEx. Order to find or purchase the closest wheel cover and get a courier to special deliver it if it couldn't get flown in by one of our planes. Oh, and the way I wrote it up, no one could lay a finger on the plane until that cover arrived. Grounded for a full day, no passengers were delayed, we had a spare plane, but still very expensive for the airline. Management blew a gasket at first, then realized they could not legally punish anyone for following the rules exactly, rules which are federal law. The next week, they saw how unrealistic that 100% compliance truly was and let all my now former coworkers work as the certified professionals they are. And our last story. Don't you dare make that until I get to the window. You got it, Chief. So I work at a popular ice cream franchise, and my store also sells fast food. I work in the ice cream section. I deal with anything with ice cream, blended drinks, and baked treats on the daily. I always wear a headset so I can listen to drive-thru orders and help make sure drive-thru keeps good times by staying on top of everything. This one night, we were absolutely slammed on drive-thru. Thankfully, front didn't have any orders, so my partner and I didn't need to worry as much. This one lady comes up to the speaker, orders her food, then she orders one of our parfaits, which consists of hot fudge, peanuts, and ice cream. We were still a couple of orders behind in my station, so I didn't worry too much about hurrying to get it done. That's when the lady gets snarky with our drive-thru person. "Don't you dare make that until I get to the window," she says. "Every time I come here, the parfait is always completely melted." My manager pipes in with her sickeningly nice tone of voice. "If you'd like, we can replace the hot fudge with cold fudge because the hot fudge is what makes the ice cream melt." She doesn't usually treat customers like children, but this lady needed this treatment. No, the lady responds, audibly offended and sounding as though my manager had just asked her the dumbest, most obvious question in the world. "I want it normal." Now, if she had requested nicely that we wait on making her parfait, I would have asked our drive-thru person to let me know as soon as the car in front of her drove off so I could make her parfait as fast as possible to give to her the best non-melted parfait she had ever received. But because she had to talk to him and my manager like that, everyone with headsets shared the exact same thought. She wants it made when she gets to the window, so be it. When our drive-thru person told me she was at the window, I went in slow motion. This lady'd been waiting at least 5 minutes in the line at this point, thanks to the people in front of her ordering a lot from the grill section. I was sure she wouldn't mind waiting another minute or so for her parfait. I paced myself so that her fast food got to her first, slowly but surely making the parfait. After all, she didn't specifically say anything about making it fast, right? Yes, the hot fudge started melting the bottom layer of ice cream, but it surely was better than being completely melted. After the parfait was done, we got it out and continued on with our lives. But I desperately wish I could have seen the look on her face while she waited more time than necessary for something that most likely still melted by the time she got home. Moral of the story, don't be a snarklord to fast food workers, especially on a busy night. They have the ability to make everything a little more mildly inconvenient for you, and you could end up being the butt of their jokes for months to come. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video, and I'll see you in the next one.